December 1987, Bahrain International Airport. Two seemingly wealthy Japanese tourists are pulled out of the passport control line on suspicion of traveling with forged documents. The elderly man makes a sudden, practiced movement. He pulls out a pack of Marlboro cigarettes, bites down on a specific filter, and crushes a glass capsule containing liquid cyanide. He dies before the guards can reach him. His younger companion follows the exact same protocol. She places a cigarette between her teeth, but a female guard knocks it out of her mouth at the last possible second. The survivor was not a Japanese tourist named Mayumi. She was Kim Hyon-hui, an elite operative for the North Korean state. Her lack of fear and her seamless disguise pointed to a long-term investment. Her willingness to die on command was the final product of 7 years in a state training program. To understand how 115 people died on Flight 858, we have to look at how a state overwrites a recruit's original persona until only the mission remains. At age 18, Kim was selected by the North Korean government for her intellect. She was immediately separated from her family and sent to a highly classified academy to begin a process of total isolation. The facility's goal was severing every external support system. Removing her past forced absolute dependence on the regime. In this vacuum, the state built a new persona, spending years conditioning her linguistically and physically to pass as a Japanese national. Instructors monitored every movement, scrutinizing how she held a cup, the way she sat, and the cadence of her walk, drilling out any physical trace of her North Korean origins until the disguise was no longer a performance, but a habit. Technical skills were only part of the training. For the mission to succeed, the state had to neutralize the recruit's innate hesitation to take a human life. She was taught that South Korea was a destitute land under foreign control, while positioning the North Korean leadership as godlike figures. This curriculum demanded that her loyalty to the state supersede all other moral considerations. 7 years of this conditioning resulted in a fabricated reality, a mental framework where mass murder was framed as a heroic act of survival for her nation. In 1987, the objective was set. South Korea was preparing to host the 1988 Summer Olympics, an event that would showcase its wealth. To stop it, North Korea targeted Flight 858. Kim and her handler traveled to Baghdad, using their fake identities to pass through security and board the aircraft. This schematic shows how the weapon was built. They smuggled 350 grams of C4 hidden inside a modified Panasonic radio, wired directly to the device's internal alarm clock. In the aircraft lavatory, Kim set the timer for 9 hours. She placed the radio in the overhead bin and disembarked during a scheduled layover in Abu Dhabi. Hours later, over the Andaman Sea, Flight 858 vanished from radar. The explosion killed all 115 people on board, including many young construction workers returning home and a visiting Indian national. As she walked away from the airport, Kim felt no remorse. Her training had categorized these 115 people as enemies of the state, effectively stripping them of their humanity in her eyes. After being caught in Bahrain and extradited to Seoul, Kim arrived fully expecting physical torture at the hands of South Korean intelligence. Instead of violence, agents used a strategy of exposure. They wanted to test her training against the physical evidence of the outside world. They allowed her to watch television, read local magazines, and observe the independence of women. On the 30th day of her detention, agents drove her into the center of Seoul. She looked out at a modern metropolis filled with commercial wealth and dense traffic, the exact opposite of the impoverished wasteland her instructors had described. Every lesson from the academy relied on the South being a failed state. Confronted with the city's prosperity, the reality she had memorized became factually impossible. The deception finally broke, and she began to confess. Kim was sentenced to death, but South Korean President Roh Tae-woo issued a full pardon. He argued that the true architect of the massacre was the North Korean state, and that Kim herself had been another kind of victim. Kim's life stands as a warning of what happens when a state successfully overwrites objective reality, turning a citizen into a precise instrument of terror.